Good morning, and welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. I am tired. It is 9:13-ish in the morning in September 29th. August 29th, not September yet. We have not yet hit September. Yeah, I don't know. Just tired today. What we have today is the RetroN Sq HD, the latest of the RetroN consoles. For those of you who don't know what a RetroN is, the RetroN is a clone console, as it's referred to. It is a console that is built to replicate an original older console that no longer is in circulation, so that way you can play your older games on it. There is the RetroN did the NES, and there was the 3, which did NES, SNES, Genesis. I had one of those. Then was the 5, which did NES, SNES, Genesis, and then also did Game Boy Advance. There's a 77, which did Atari. And there's one in development now called the RetroN Alt, which will be the 64. That was announced at E3 2019. But it is still in development. It is still not out yet. And we've had no word. It's just, I actually asked RetroN. I reached out to RetroN to ask, is there any news on the RetroN Alt? Is there going to be a time in the near future when you're going to be announcing more information? They said they couldn't say anything more about it. They also said that beyond just the RetroN Alt, there are other consoles in development, and the RetroN, maybe, they wouldn't get into about what they're developing. Maybe that includes the Game Gear. Maybe that includes a RetroN DS of sorts that can do like what the RetroN does, but with a little touchscreen controller, kind of like a Wii U gamepad. Who knows? But that's just me speculating. But we're here to talk about the RetroN, what's called the RetroN Sq HD, which is very small, this console. That was the first thing I was taken by. Is it's, in terms of like height and width, and length, it's about the size of 3 Game Boy Color games stacked into a cube. I'm sorry, not 3 Game Boy Color games. Took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Game Boy Color games and made a cube with them. That'd be about the size of the RetroN SQ. Maybe it's a little bit bigger, but still, it's not a colossal size when we're talking about a console that is, designed to play, Game Boy Color games on your TV. There's a little micro SD port on the back. That seems mostly to, from what I can gather from using it, that seems mostly to do firmware updates. Namely, if you go and do, if you use it to update your, the console, because apparently between 1.2 and 1.3, which is the one it ships with now, 1.3 had expanded support for the Game Boy Advance, while the 1.1 and the 1.2 had an issue with that, where it wasn't great emulation. The 1.3 fixes that. I think that going that route made a lot of sense. So that way, if there is a need to update the console at any point, that's the easiest way to do it. It outputs into HDMI at 720p, which is pretty cool. So all of your games will be upscaled to be HD. There's a little toggle switch on the console as well that allows you to flip between 4:3 and 16:9. Though this is for Game Boy Color mostly, and Game Boy Regular mostly, because both of those consoles were in 4:3, and then when you put them onto a Game Boy Advance where it was 16:9, you could either play it in box with black bars on the side, or you can play it in full widescreen with it stretched. I played it in widescreen. That's how I played it. The black bars used to annoy the fuck out of me, but that's how I used to play it when I did when I played Game Boy Color games on my Game Boy Advance. So that's how I went into this. Emulation is great. I didn't encounter any issues with the emulation. Everything worked fine, and I tried a few games. Obviously, I tried most of the Pokemon games. I tried Leaf Green, Ruby Sapphire, and Emerald and Gold were the ones I tried, because those are the ones I had on hand easily to get into the console. I also did Rugrats Castle Capers, which I picked up at a local game store because I was like, all right, this is like $1.50, or it was under $5, and I needed it to get it over the amount to pay with a debit card, because I don't usually carry cash on me. So that was what I ended up buying to get it over that lip. I don't want to say I regret that purchase, but I will say the game is not fantastic, and the game is pretty, The game is pretty weak, to say the least. Let's see, what else was there? I played Power Rangers Dino Thunder, and Power Rangers, what was the other one I played? Power Rangers, Lightspeed Rescue? No, Lightspeed Rescue for the PlayStation. What the fuck was the other one that I played? I forgot what it was. It was, Time Force. Both of those, and I feel like there were more games that I tried on this to make sure that they worked and how they worked and how well. There was no lag, there was no weird things. The controller is not specifically designed for a GameCube or a Game Boy. The controller they give you with the console stock is the same one that you would get for an SNES, which I guess makes sense because you don't have to create another controller just for it, but at the same time you end up with a bunch of extra buttons and no ability to map what those other buttons do. Because when you play, you do need L and R on this console, because L and R were on the Game Boy Advance, but you do not need X and Y. X and Y were not on the Game Boy Advance. There is an argument to be made that you should have the ability to code onto those things, like maybe an option where start as X and select as Y, or something like that. That would be interesting, but that's not an option in this game. What else was there? If you're going to use it for, I think the biggest use of this console would be for streaming. If you're someone who has a lot of old video games that wants to stream them, this might be the console to do it with, because of how easy it is to integrate in with an Elgato or other capture card system. Because it exports or outputs video in 720 on an HDMI, it's very easy to move it to the console, to move it to your computer using a capture card. I also think that what was the other one? Going with looking at it kind of broadly, I think that's definitely the best use for it. Unless you're someone who just has a lot of old games laying around and just wants to be able to play them again, and you don't want to go to a store and pick up a Game Boy, because that'll run you a lot of money at this point to get an old used Game Boy SP or Game Boy Advance. And let's be honest, at this point you probably want an SP because you're probably used to having backlit objects, whereas back when the Game Boy Advance came out and it wasn't backlit, you're like, alright, well that's par for the course. We don't, nothing's backlit, so it kind of makes sense. Now, the new one, you do need it backlit, kind of. So you would have to get an SP, and that'll cost you $170, $180, depending on where you go or where you buy it from, or you buy it online and you hope it doesn't get fucked up in the mail, and it just becomes an ordeal. So it's just easier to just go to local game store, pick up your console there, and do that, or pick up the RetroN Sq HD, which is going to do a lot more. What else was there with this console? I feel like there was definitely more that I wanted to address, and I just can't remember what it is. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty straightforward console, but the emulation is great. Look, if the emulation wasn't good, it would be a lot harder to have a concise review of it, because then you get into issues with the emulation. Oh, I think the other thing that should be addressed is for speed running, because I did some research into this for a different project that's somewhat related. I did some research into speed running and whether or not the RetroN's allowed, because I know that when they do speed runs, there's you have to use the, what's it called? You have to use the place that you have to use a certain console with certain settings. If you're using emulation, there are certain settings to be adhered to, and all of that. And what I found is, I didn't know this, but apparently there was a frame rate change on the Super Game Boy, or for the NES, which you can use to play Game Boy Color games on the NES, or Game Boy games on the NES. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing. But what that caused was, if you were someone who was speedrunning in that environment, if you were speedrunning Game Boy games, people would use the NES with the Super Game Boy to get a little bit of an edge, because it gives you a little bit of time saving because of the frame rate. The frame rate's better, therefore you have better, it works better for you. Because the frame rate's better there, the Super Game Boy, in a lot of communities who really deeply care about the emulation, like Pokemon, like Mario, like these other, big ones that a lot of people do, it's banned. You can't use Super Game Boy as part of your speedrun. You have to use Game Boy itself, or you have to use an emulator that with an approved emulation software. There is no real record about the RetroN in a lot of these places. I have not seen. Like, I looked it up on speedrunning.net or whatever, speedrunning.org or whatever the fuck it was, speedrun.com maybe, I don't know, but whatever. I looked it up on there to be like, oh, is this allowed? Like, would I be able to use the RetroN? And a lot of them said, reach out to your communities and ask your communities, because it's a community with community basis. Sometimes they don't care, sometimes they do. Either way, that's going to be your biggest hurdle when it comes to speedrunning on the RetroN. It's going to be usage within your community. Is your community allowing the use of the RetroN Sq HD or the RetroN 5? But if it's not, then who cares? Then use it, have fun with it, and try to set your record that way. If they are banning it, then that's a shame, because it's a great tool to get high quality video out of your old games. Yeah, I think that just about covers it. I think I got everything in this now. Let me see. Let's start right there. 15 minutes. I don't really anything else to add, because it is a great tool. You can pick it up. I think if you pick it up at a local game store, you're going to end up paying more than if you buy direct from Hyperkin. But I'd rather pay a little more at a local game store than buy direct from Hyperkin, because I think that buying from a local game store is more beneficial to... I mean, look, Hyperkin does great work for the conservation of video games. Just by releasing these consoles in general, they're doing a lot to help preserve older games. So you get this opportunity now to play these games in a way on modern equipment, in an interesting way. And let's be honest, I don't think HDMI is going anywhere anytime soon. I think we've kind of hit this standardization thing now, where it's like HDMI is going to be the standard, USB-C is going to be the standard. I don't think that we're going anywhere on this. So I think that, this is a good way to do that, and this is going to be a way to bring this into, into the future in a way, the next phases of, life. But yeah, I think that it's definitely a worthwhile investment if you enjoy Game Boy Advance games or Game Boy Color games or anything like that, because it's a great way to play them on your TV screen in the same way you used to when you had a Game Boy player on your GameCube or like I said, the Game Boy, Super Game Boy for the NES. It's a fantastic all-around, I think it's a good investment for anyone who enjoys playing Game Boy games. But like I said, not to disparage Hyperkin, and Hyperkin's website does have a lot of merchandise and stuff that is very useful for the person who likes to play retro games. Not to disparage them in any way, but there is the idea that buying local is better, because that's where you're going to be able to get the games themselves. You're going to get a lot more out of it if you buy it at a local game store and then buy games specifically from that. But yeah, we'll wrap up there for today. This week, Honk for Jesus Save Your Soul is the big release, and I'll be seeing that probably Friday. Of course, my movie theater is still renovated. I went there yesterday to see 3,000 Years of Longing, and oh my god, the whole thing is torn up. We're at 2 months now on this renovation. It's like, what the fuck? Just hurry it along. But yeah, we'll wrap up there for today. Our next episode will be probably She-Hulk later this week. Probably the next episode, unless I play something else. Oh no, we're doing Movie-topia. I think it's called a movie. I forgot what the exact title is, but it's a cool game I found on Steam. I found a demo of it. It's coming out in the near future, and it's kind of like Game Dev Tycoon, but with movies. And I think we have an interesting discussion about the difference between independent film and independent games, using that as a catalyst. But until then, have a great rest of your week.